I'm joined by Richard Blanco, broadcaster and host of the House Hunters International. So many of you getting in contact. Sandra, good morning. Sandra says, David, we had 2 IT power outages at my NHS trust this week. I joke we must have been hijacked by the Russians. Wow. That feeds really well into that top story. This morning, lots of you getting in touch about all sorts of other things as well, about COP. This is the landmark $300 billion for poorer nations in the COP29 climate deal. Lots of you getting in touch saying this is absolutely ridiculous. Why are we paying all this money? I'm paraphrasing slightly here. And many of you very unhappy about what is going on. Just also about the recall petition. So there's a petition running for those people who are signing up saying we need a general election now. This is showing that Labour really does not have a honeymoon period at the moment. And Vinny, good morning to you. Vinny says, a honeymoon? I think the bride ran off with the best man.
Yes.
Pithy, I love it. Keep them coming in. Right, let's take you through some of the front pages this morning. We've spoken about this already this morning, but the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, that's a very good place to start. Here it is. Putin ready to cripple Britain in a cyber strike. As I was saying, Russia is prepared to launch a wave of cyber attacks on Britain that could turn the lights out for millions. This is according to a cabinet minister. This is Pat McFadden, who is Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster. He is going to do this speech tomorrow where he's basically going to say we need to be really aware of the threat that Russia poses. And this is about moving from traditional warfare to cyber warfare against this country. He talks about infrastructure being targeted, businesses that could shut down the power grids. And we were just talking about this, saying there are all these proxies as well, who I suppose Russia is turning a blind eye to.
Yes, I mean, this is a worry, isn't it? I wish they would tell us a bit more about what they put in place to keep us safe, actually.
But I suppose, you know,
I'd like to be reassured.
Well, I assume it's a matter of national security. They won't tell us.
Yes, I know, and it leaves us in the dark and makes us fear it all the more, I guess.
So that's the front page of the Sunday Telegraph, and this comes on the back of the ambassador saying that now Britain is very much involved in the war because of the use of Storm Shadow missiles. Sunday Express this morning, very similar sort of sentiment, I suppose. Stand strong against Russia's nuclear threat. Britain must stand firm in the face of nuclear threats by Russia designed to destroy support for Ukraine. This is Putin's decision to update his nuclear strategy, making it easier for him to push the button and trigger World War III, according to the newspaper, has been calculated to make his opponents cower. This says, according to a former minister, Tom Tugendhat, Putin is using threats to try to frighten us into inaction. Putin is a bully, isn't he?
He is a bully, and I just hope that with Trump coming in as a president in the US, that we might see a reset of this relationship and that we could see some kind of change next year.
Why? Because they're both bullies?
Yes, effectively. I'm just hoping that, you know, Trump's approach is going to be so different from Biden's that it might even give Putin some kind of off-ramp, really, for him to be able to kind of end the war in some way.
But we also know Putin admires Trump.
Yes, and that's why I think that we might see some kind of negotiation between them. Which
I think the talks are already in place.
Yes, no, I'm sure you're right. Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
In this transition period, and of course that's why Biden allowed the ATACMS to be used, because obviously it was his outgoing administration. It was kind of the final act of that. The question is, why didn't he do it much earlier? Because either you believe in a policy or you don't believe in a policy.
Yes, I agree. I think it's odd that he's left it until the last minute, but I think he knows that Trump won't allow it, and so, you know, he's done it as his swan song, I guess.
Let's move on to the Sunday Times this morning. This is a story really close to my heart. 2/3 of the country back assisted dying. This is a big poll. Apparently, almost 2/3 of the public support assisted dying. This is an in-depth poll published on the eve of the parliamentary vote. This shows how societal attitudes have changed towards assisted dying, because 65% are in favour, 13% against, nearly a quarter, 22%, are undecided. This is the really interesting bit. Those that have lost a parent in the past 5 years are 18 points more likely to strongly back it than those that haven't.
I guess they've observed firsthand the suffering, haven't they, basically? Yeah. And I think, you know, people like Esther Rantzen have been very strong advocates for this, and I think the fact that there are so many safeguards in the the law that's proposed.
Yes, I think there are. The worry, and what people are saying is, of course, this is the starting point and the goalposts will move and then it will be a slippery slope. But I'll tell you later, actually, about how in various countries they say that that simply isn't true and that the goalposts have never moved. And I also believe, and I've said this multiple times, but I was told years ago that we prepare for birth and you try and give people a great birth, and I think we should give people a great death.
Well, I agree, and of course part of the problem is we're not good at talking about dying.
Not at all.
It's the one thing that's certain that we all know we're heading for.
It's the last great taboo, isn't it?
It is, I think. Yes, it is. And, you know, Esther Anson's been very eloquent on this, of course. There are concerns, you know, if you look at countries like Canada, there was a terrible story that I heard there of a homeless man who decided to go for assisted dying because he thought he would never be able to find a home and he felt that his life wasn't worth living. I really very much hope that we don't get to that stage.
Well, so do I, and I hope those safeguards you see at the moment, and certainly in the legislation it says you have to have less than 6 months to live, so therefore he wouldn't qualify.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And I don't know how Canada have got themselves into that mess, really.
I mean, that's interesting. I assume it was turned down.
Well, I think he got some support from a charity and he didn't go through with it.
The Observer also, same story, assisted dying leads to state death service. I think that's pretty harsh, actually. This is Shabana Mahmood. She's written a letter to her constituents. I want to note this. Her constituents, she has a huge Muslim population, and religion will play a big role in what she's saying, won't it?
Yeah, I think her response is broadly faith-based, isn't it? Which is fine, you know, she has the right to have that response. I
think that's pretty strong, a state death service.
Yes, I think that's ridiculous, actually. I'm not sure that's what's being proposed at all.
Yeah, well, it isn't.
Yes.
I mean, again, this is inflammatory, but we will see when this is comes to before Parliament this week, actually. And that brings me nicely to the question this morning. How would you vote on assisted dying? And why? I was just saying to him, actually, there's another great story, we'll talk about it later, but apparently the afternoon is now the big night out. People aren't going out in the evening, they're going out in the afternoon, and it just carries on. I think it's a marvellous idea.
Love it, love the long lunch.
Well, yes, do you have those in Spain? Yes, is the answer.
Oh, yes. I've been in Madrid recently, and definitely long lunches.
Now, yesterday I said the Spanish don't drink to excess, and I was told that is incorrect.
Well, no, I would agree that we don't drink to excess because we tend to eat when we drink. That's the difference, yes. I think. So.
We just drink.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right. Let's move through the front pages quickly now. The Mail, this is the Mail on Sunday. Starmer declares war on benefits Britain. We spoke about this at length yesterday. Keir Starmer today pledges to crack down hard on the bulging benefits bill blighting our society. There's some alliteration. He tries to steal the Tories' political clothes over abuses of the welfare system. Essentially, he is trying to get through changes to tame the, wait for this, 137 billion bill for welfare benefits. And we spoke about this yesterday and what COVID did, and of course it disempowered many people. But when you look at this, disability benefits have gone from 19.31 billion up to 39 billion. Universal credit from 42 billion up to 51 billion. Housing benefit has gone up over 30 billion. And total state pension budget of 123.9 billion, of course, untouchable because of the triple lock. That's the Mail. The Mirror, this is a big story. Top cop faces probe on Knott's stabbings. All the detail is hidden inside. But this is about a Chief Constable, Kate Maynell, is facing an independent office for police conduct. This is IOPC probe. She allegedly tried to stop journalists revealing knifeman Valdo Calicane had been reported twice to cops for stalking. This is before he killed Barbie Webber, Grace O'Malley Kumar and Ian Coates in 2023. She called a private press briefing to reveal the two incidents. But then, and this is kind of very staggering, made reporters sign NDAs, forbidding them from publishing what she said. That seems extraordinary.
It absolutely does, and I hope we get to the bottom of this, actually.
So do I. We need to be careful what we say at this point. The Sun on Sunday. Fancy seeing Rue here. This is Colleen Rooney. We'll have a surprise reunion with her youngest sons in I'm a Celebrity. Tearjerker, don't care. The Daily Star. The geek shall inherit the earth. Apparently, geeky hobbies like gaming and fantasy role-playing, are more popular with British youngsters than footy. The nerds have their revenge, apparently, Richard.
Absolutely, yes.
And this is where it ties in nicely to today. Celebrate your unique talent. Well, maybe it's gaming, maybe it's playing... Actually, a lot of people like fantasy role-play. Well, like all these things like The Hobbit or whatever, you know, Middle-earth and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, that's game, and they have games where you can do that.
Well, allegedly.
Sorry, I'm not a gamer, as you probably
well, I can tell, absolutely. Right, let's move on. Also, this morning, I'm talking about assisted dying. It's really emotive. I think it's incredibly personal as well. Keith has just messaged me to say, what a great call from Steve, and I would agree. Thank you, Steve, for that as well. But it is a very emotive issue. Trevor Eccles, good morning to you. Trevor's in Accrington in Lancashire. David, I was a carer for 16 years. I changed my mind after the first 2 years of doing that job that assisted dying is the only dignified way to stop a lot of elderly patients suffering. I had so many clients that had enough and just wanted to leave the world with dignity and stop the suffering. This is a really important point. I wonder, when you talk to medics and paramedics and carers and people who've actually seen it and been there, and as we saw with those people who've had family members, whether their thinking is different to those people who have no kind of experience.
Yes, I mean, they've had that personal contact and experience, haven't they? And it's important their voice gets heard, I think, in this debate.
So do I. Let us know your thoughts, please, on that 0344 499 1000. Those calls charged at the national rate. Now, you've looked through the papers this morning and picked out some notable ones. Let's start with the Sunday Times.
Yes, so this is the one about the temporary blindness that was brought on by the fake... It's the methanol, isn't it?
Yes,
that was
it is.
in adulterating alcoholic drinks.
This is in Laos. We heard about this. And the headline this morning, I went temporarily blind and my heart rate hit 170 beats per minute. This is a real worry for parents because their kids want to go off, don't they? They go backpacking or whatever. And this is a rite of passage. And so you go off trekking and you go to Laos. They check into a hostel. It's like £10 a night. You get given a free shot. If you're 17, 18, what are you going to do? Of course you're going to have it.
Exactly. And I had some fake alcohol, actually, in Beirut when I was there a few years ago.
Did you?
It wasn't methanol, but it was definitely something else that made me feel quite ill. And it, I can really relate to this because, you ask for vodka and tonic or whatever you ask for, you expect it to be legitimate. And, of course, 6 people have lost their lives here. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
It's really sad. 6 people have died of methanol poisoning after a stay at Nana 2 weeks ago when a night of fun in a small tourist town turned to tragedy and horror. Just absolutely dreadful. And of course then you have to ask, what is the motivation behind this? Is it by accident? Did the hostel buy this cheap liquor believing it was actually alcohol, or is it more nefarious than that?
Well, apparently methanol can occur by accident when the alcohol is homemade, a practice common in Southeast Asia. Yeah,
it can, absolutely. Let's move on to the Sunday Telegraph now. This is page 9 of the Sunday Telegraph, and the headline, what? Sly Old Fox Pub. It's all about a pub, and apparently we're all too sensitive and too woke.
Yes, absolutely. So Petter, is it Petter or Peter? I can't remember. It's
Peter.
Peter, yes, is demanding that the Sly Old Fox in Birmingham, which dates back to 1891, alter its name because it is derogatory, inaccurate and unfair to foxes.
I think it's really accurate.
Well, they're saying that foxes are actually rather clever and it should be called the Clever Fox.
Sly foxes are clever, aren't they? By the nature of being sly.
Yes, I agree, with this.
This is absolute nonsense. A historic pub that played host to Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy has been told to change its name. So they want it to change its name from the Sly Old Fox to what?
Well, I think they're proposing the Clever Fox, and they're saying that Sly is kind of pandering to negative stereotypes about foxes. Derogatory descriptions of foxes sadly perpetuate their unearned reputations as pests, which leads to the violent persecution of these animals.
Well, they are pests in urban areas, let me tell you. And, of course, foxes overturning bins is a huge problem. Actually, badgers as well, I seem to recall.
OK, yeah, I mean, apparently there are 10,000 urban foxes. I know whenever my friends from Spain come over to London, they're absolutely absolutely shocked that we have foxes, you know, throughout London.
Yeah, I see them in the morning when I come to work.
Yes, yeah, they're
just wandering around,
Yes.
having a little munch on things. I mean, this is pathetic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm torn on this because...
Are you? Come on.
Well, no, I don't think I'd change the name of
What about the
pub.
Queen's Head? I mean, does that have to change? Because what? It's really bad for a queen to have a head.
I don't know. I kind of like foxes, and I don't want them to be maligned. But on the other hand, I think...
But it's an old fox, and it's sly. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I think it's fine, actually, on balance.
You're becoming very woke, Richard. Now, this goes back to the benefits culture. The Sun on Sunday, page 16.
Yes, I think, you know, isn't it incredible, really, how this safety net has become 137 billion, rather. You know, it was never meant to become that
of course
huge
it wasn't.
and extensive, was it?
And,
really?
and I read out those figures earlier, and there is a real problem here. But of course, Labour is trying. Actually, the Labour Party, in some ways, is trying to steal the Tories' shoes, or what should have been a Conservative Party. But then there is a massive problem here. We've got tons of people, 925,000 people not in education, employment, or training. What on young people? I mean, that's unsustainable.
What I'm reassured by here is I think Liz Kendall is... she's a great person to be Secretary of State in the DWP because I think she's really got a handle on it. She's saying that... work is good for your mental health.
Agreed.
I've never been swayed from my belief in the value of work. I believe that the benefits of work go way beyond a pay slip, that work can bring pride, self-respect and dignity.
So perhaps she'd like to look at why the government is increasing employers' national insurance contributions. So this is a push me, pull you. So she's right. We need more kids in work, but you're clobbering the employers. So they're going to employ fewer kids.
Well, yeah, but I think it's just about filling the hole in the budget, isn't it? And, you know, that's one way of raising over 20 billion.
Well, they've made that number up. It doesn't exist.
Yes, yeah. I mean, well, 45 billion of tax rises and about half of it is coming from increased national insurance contributions. I think the biggest concern there is that we're supposed to be encouraging growth, and if we're going to be, you know, giving Tesco a £200 million a year extra tax bill, Sainsbury's 140 million, etc., then I'm not sure we're going to see much growth.
No, I would agree. And it does seem to me, or certainly indicate, that this is one side of government not talking to the other. And Rachel Reeves writing a budget on the back of a post-it note.
Yes, but I also wonder how Liz Kendall is really going to chip away at this 137 billion.
It's a huge problem.
I think it's very interesting seeing a Labour government do it, though, because it has a very different tone from a Conservative government.
That's what I was kind of getting at. I wouldn't have expected it from a Labour government, but then they have to look at how much cash we're shelling out. The Sunday Express, page 5, but... Bash Britain.
Yes, I'm always I chuckle at the names of these storms, and I wondered what you thought, whether you think naming storms is a good thing.
Yes, apparently there's... so Joe Wheeler keeps telling me there are different ways to name storms, and it depends where the storm originates as to which Met Office names it.
Oh, really?
And they're alphabetical, so after B will come C.
But I always think it must be really annoying, you know, if your name is Bert, you know, to have a storm.
But, I mean, there's a serious side to this, isn't there?
There is, of course.
I mean, people were saying, well, obviously it's winter and we expect storms. That is true. But at the same time, I think sometimes we underestimate the power of nature.
Yes, and it's incredible. Here we are in the middle of November and we're already getting a major storm. But
we would expect that, wouldn't we?
I guess so, yes. Yeah. And 82 mile-an-hour winds, and I think there have been 3 deaths as well, tragically.
Yeah, that is very sad. And obviously it's worth, as I said, checking on elderly relatives and elderly neighbours. And very quickly, if we can, The Observer.
Yes, I really like this story. This is about using ChatGPT to help you buy your Christmas presents. I promised I'd never turn into my dad and give people money for presents, but I'm afraid I've started doing it.
Have too.
But yeah, apparently...
Why have you done that?
Well, I only do it for birthday presents, not for Christmas presents. And I don't know. I've got a cousin who's absolutely brilliant at selecting the perfect present, and I've never had that skill. I don't know if you have, David. No, I find it really, really hard.
Well, not, and particularly with young people, I have no idea. And so I've now resorted with my nephews and nieces to giving them money, because I think it's better if they spend it and they know what they want.
I think with young people, definitely, where maybe they're short of cash, yeah. It says only a handful of people are actually using AI at the moment, but some of the companies, you know, that do AI are kind of, they've got their eye on this and thinking that there may be a future in making some money from it.
So what do you say to it? Tell me what present I should buy Audrey.
I suppose so. I quite like ChatGPT. I think it's hilarious because it's so sensible and you know, well mannered and balanced in its response to everything.
There was another story yesterday about how they're trying to make AI semblant to make ethical decisions.
Right.
So at the moment, if you ask it various things, it ended up whatever you asked it. Essentially, I think it was talking about sanctity of life and so on. But essentially, it had no moral compass. And that is the whole new kind of push.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't particularly need a moral compass when you're choosing a present.
No, maybe not. And so I assume you give it a price point and say this is what they like, and off it goes. And
yeah, there's a new Perplexity has launched a Buy with Pro in the US, which is an AI shopping assistant that will let users research products, then buy them on Perplexity's website for $20 a month. So there you go.
So there's a catch.
There's a catch.
Yeah,
yes.
there's a catch. Richard, thanks ever so much. Great stories there.